Hello, everyone. Great day. I'm happy to be here with you today. And as we are now already almost 3 months into the corona virus and situation, I want to talk to you today about will we ever return to normal? And what's interesting is ever since the virus hit us in a real way, we're talking about January, February, people heard about things, but it was somewhere else. It was someone else's problem. It wasn't our situation. But ever since it hit us sort of in mid-March in every country or place, I'm sitting in Canada, in the US, in different cities, in different states, but every country or place where it hit, and sometime in March, life as we knew it came to a screeching halt. Quarantine, isolation, no work, no school, no more synagogue, no celebrations, weddings, bar mitzvahs, all other types of gatherings. The regular daily things of entertainment, going out to different types of from sports to other types of entertainment venues, restaurants, bars, travel, all came to a screeching halt. All stopped all of a sudden, so quickly. Our life was upended. It's like the life we knew, we're all so used to, gone. Many people talked about how only in the Second World War they remembered that life as they had it all of a sudden changed drastically. It was not the same. Thank God we're not in a war, but all of a sudden we felt that everything we knew or we were used to, regular life things, were gone. It's all centered around our home. And since then, what's always been at the center of people's minds is that question: when will we get back to normal? When will we get back to the normal life we had before? When will that be? We have leaders. All of a sudden, we're all tuned in to the leaders of our cities, our states, our countries, presidents, prime ministers. And you hear all types of things that may not be over for 12 to 18 months until we find a vaccine or until we find a medicine that can deal with it properly. Maybe it will never be over. Maybe life will never be back to normal. All this does, it adds anxiety to already a very difficult situation. It adds anxiety when it's unknown and we're not even sure what's happening. So the question is, will we ever be back to the same as before? Will we ever be back to the life as we knew it from before? In these few months, we got used to so many things that wasn't common before. For instance, working from home. There was an element of people that worked from home. That was a small element of people. Most people went to the workplace. They were in the car traveling, or they went to a workplace. There were water coolers. Everyone sat around the water cooler. Everyone sat in lunchrooms. They worked together in teams. All of a sudden, everyone became, who still had jobs, became a working at home person. Shopping online. Shopping online has been around forever, but all of a sudden, many people are shopping online. They're buying their groceries online. Everyone went to the store. Today, very few people go to the store to buy their groceries. So much of it is happening online. People running away from the city life, cramped apartments, to try to find more space in the suburbs, in the country. And there's just some very simple daily things. Think about for yourself. What has changed in the last 3 months? What have you gotten used to in the last 3 months that's different than you ever did before? Besides spending a lot of time with your children, if you have a family of children, with your spouse in the same place. Another thing, many things became totally upended. For instance, who are the heroes today? We no more looking like many in society look to celebrities, sports stars, actors, singers. They're not even part of the people that we're talking about. Business icons. Who are the people that are the heroes everyone is looking at, celebrating? Who are we paying attention to? The doctors, the nurses, the frontline workers, the people who are keeping the food chain alive, the food stores, the delivery people. It's unbelievable. These are people that most people never really looked at before, never looked up to them. And today we are looking to them. Actually, even in government, the leaders of government are deferring to what did the doctors say? Because we're only going to implement what the doctors tell us. So things that were not usual in regular times, today all of a sudden has become a very usual thing. Totally upended. So I want to pose a different question. My question is, do we want to go back to normal? Do we want to go back to what was before? Because what is normal? Just because there was a way that we lived, that we were used to living, that we were going out to work and kids were going to school, and then we were hanging out in different places and spending the evenings doing different things, and they're running to sports or running to all other types of activities, getting together with people in different ways. Was that world perfect? Was that world desirable? Was just that the world that we were in? Or was that world really a good world that we're dying to get back to that type of life? And that's the question I think we have to ask ourselves. Do we want to get back to normal? So I'll tell you something interesting. The first time in the Torah we find, the first time that obviously, when we talked about before, the people that are important today, all the essential workers, which are people that no one even looked at before. Thanks for someone bringing it up. The first time we find someone whose their normal life was disrupted, like the world was disrupted, is in the Torah. And we find it by Noah. Noah. So the world is going on for a good 1600 years. God decides the world is not behaving, he wants to destroy the world as is. Noah is a good man, he behaves properly. God says, I'm going to save you. He hasn't built his ark, so Noah can be saved while being in the ark while God brings a flood to the world. So we're told that Noah saw actually three worlds. First, Noah lived a full life in the world that was, which though they were rebellious against God, meaning in really God wasn't part of the picture, and they behaved totally immorally and without any types of rules and laws and a bit of anarchy going on all the time, the world was going on. And yet, that world, when Noah closed the door of the ark, that world was over. That that world that he had was over. Then he's in the ark for a year. The flooding till the water recedes. Civilization is destroyed. The world is destroyed. Noah and his family stays alive in the ark. It wasn't easy. We're told obviously it was a miracle. How did so many animals fit into a 3-story ark? Today we have big yachts, massive yachts. Everyone's building one bigger than the next. You have these cruise ships, and they hold 4,000 or 5,000 people, 6,000 people. We're talking about all the animals of the universe, 2 of each species at least, some 7 were in there. Noah and his family were small, but food for a year. Then the garbage was kept there all the time. How did it all fit in? It was a miracle. It was tight. It wasn't easy. But there reigned a certain level of peace, and they made it through. And then the water receded. The ark settled down on the mountain. He sent out the birds. Life is coming back to this earth. You would think that Noah would jump out of the ark and say, let me get out of this place. This is like a prison I'm in. This is like quarantine and isolation multiplied many times. But you know what? He didn't. Until God told Noah, get out of this ark, you and your family. and start rebuilding civilization. And then God gave him assurances of how he will look after the world and he will not destroy the world again. Noah did not leave the ark. You know, it's very interesting. Even now, I see the same thing. As societies are opening up, and where we are, society is opening up, they're allowing day camps to happen, certain daycares and other services, but most people are not running back. Most people are holding back, saying, no, 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 I'm not sending my child. I'm going to keep them home still. They're scared. They're concerned. All of a sudden, they don't even want to necessarily go back to normal. They're not sure what to expect. Noah felt the same way. He was afraid. So what am I going back to? He had to be pushed out. So we find something very interesting. Maimonides tells us that every event that happens and that we experience carries a message to us. You know, God runs the world. There's a God in the world. We believe in God. He didn't just create the world. He's the master of the universe. He runs the world. And any event that happens is an event that God makes happen. And when God makes an event happen to an individual, the individual has to take a step back and say, what's the message in this event? How can I learn or grow from this event? Whether it's a great, happy event, and also when it's, especially when it's a tragic or sad or difficult event, a challenge. When it's a group of people, they have to look at it the same way. What's the message? Something happens in a community, in a city, in a certain region. What's the message perhaps we can take from here? And when it happens globally, even more so, there's a message. God communicates to us through messages, through life, and what we encounter every day. But when something happens unusual, that changes things quickly, even if just for the moment, there's a message going on there. Now, in Judaism, we don't believe that a message means that there's a punishment. Every time something tragic happens, there's a punishment. God is angry. This person did something wrong. This community did something wrong. The world is going on a wrong path. Not necessarily. God's interaction with us includes many wake-up calls. Is that we're veering off a track or we're focusing on the wrong thing. Or we're not focusing on the right thing at this time. So God shakes us up a little, gives us a little wake-up call. You know, like a human being, when the body has an ache, you got to call a doctor, you got to go check it out. Why? Because that's the message of the body saying something is not right. That doesn't mean necessarily every ache is disastrous, is end-of-life issues. Sometimes it's a small thing, but it's putting back your focus in the right place and fixing what needs to be fixed and becoming more wholesome, more for yourself. And so too, when things happen on a global event, in a global way, this is a message that God is sending to us, a message of a wake-up call. So in our approach, the Jewish approach is that if after all we've gone through, and the truth is in our generation, and you hear it from so many people talking all the time, in our generation, this is the first of such a disruption. Yeah, we've had 9/11, where all of a sudden flying wasn't going to be the same. And obviously terrorism was brought, but most of our lives are carrying on normally. But here we had a disruption that touched everyone and every part of our lives, every part of our interaction with the outside world, going outside of our home and being productive outside of our home was touched. So if we make through this, and we will make through this, and God willing, it should be very soon. We hope and pray every day this will be over very soon, and we'll all be able to get out of our homes and be able to resume work and schools and those types of activities. I'm not using the word going back to normal because that's what we're discussing. But we're able to resume all the regular activities. If we just go back and we say, oh, thank God we made it. I'm going to erase this from my memory as if this never happened. And now we're going back to the regular rat race we were in all the time. If this happens, then all of this was for naught. Because we don't believe that this is random, that maybe one person who ate a bat, or if it came out of a lab, I'm not getting into what your theory is, one person brought the world to its knees like nothing else. There's no army, there's no weapon that has brought the world to its knees like what happened here. Something much greater that's going on. And if we just go back to what we wore before, so what is this all about? It's just a waste of time. God has to put extra pressure now. We have financial issues that we have to deal with. People have to pay their bills. Businesses have been lost or almost been lost. Many jobs have been lost. Is it just a game going on? So obviously, if something like this, so global and so much affecting our daily regular lives, there is something here we have to walk away with. And the truth is that the way we see it is this is an opportunity to grow, hopefully to see something differently. The Talmud tells us that there was a great rabbi, Rabbi Zera. Rabbi Zera lived in those days, like many of the Jews after the destruction of the Second Temple, lived in Babylonia. But he wanted to go to Israel, and he wanted to study the Talmud from the rabbis in Israel. Because we're told that Israel, the ear itself, makes you wiser. It's a holier place. And even the Talmud, the Jerusalem Talmud, is written very differently than the Babylonian Talmud. It's a very different approach. It's the same laws and the same outcomes, but the approach is very different. It's a holier approach and way, more removed from the life as we know it in the diaspora and in the exile. So it says in the process, he fasted 100 fasts and he prayed to God to forget, because he was a smart man. He was a very great scholar. He was one of the greatest scholars of his times. But he wanted to forget the Babylonian Talmud that he had studied to be able to start studying the Jerusalem Talmud. Now, why would you have to forget? If you want to gain more knowledge, you don't need to forget anything to gain more knowledge. All you need to do is just to gain more knowledge, to add more. But that's not what he was seeking. Rabbi Zera was driven to appreciate and understand and learn Torah and to understand God and this world and the point of the Torah on a very different level. They just want to know more. He wanted a deeper understanding. And he realized that if he just continues to learn, it's building one building block on another, that it's not exponential growth. He wanted an exponential growth. To have exponential growth, he recognized sometimes you got to step backwards to step forward. Sometimes you got to move away from the basic fundamental way of thinking to gain a paradigm shift, to be able to see things from a different angle. In life, Einstein is the one who said that he doesn't understand why people think that if they make the same mistakes again and again and again, there'll be a different outcome every time. If you want a different outcome, you got to approach it differently. So if we approach everything the same exact way we did yesterday, then we will not find a different outcome. We will not find the solutions. We will not see things from a different angle. And this is what Reb Zera wanted, to see the world from a different angle, to see the Torah through a different angle. To do that, he had to not forget the laws, but forget the method, to forget the things he was tied into about the methodology and the fundamentals of how he approached the learning Torah, to learn it the way they approached it in Israel, where it was a much more clearer way of seeing God's divine word. And so too, everything we go through in this world is a chance, or God's way, who God's communicating to us all the time, to see the world in a different way, to be able to comprehend what's going on, comprehend ourselves in a very, very different way. Many people can relate to in life when someone has a personal tragedy, God forbid, they lose a parent. So as a rabbi, very often that's when I get calls from people saying, Rabbi, I have a question. People never asked any questions about Judaism, never asked a question about God, never asked any real deep questions about purpose and sense and souls. All of a sudden are engaging and wanting to know what happened. Sometimes I ask them, wait a second, I'm coming after you to come and join a class and learn. You never want to come. What happened now? So he says, it shook me up a little bit. And now I see things a little differently. Till now I thought what was important was what I thought was important. But now that I see the loss of life of someone so close to me, I'm starting to see that maybe what I thought was important and I was pursuing all the time is not so important. There are things that are more important because of what I went through. So very often when we go through something personal, it's a chance to all of a sudden to take off another layer and we're able to see things a little differently. And then we start questioning and learning and we open ourselves up to something that we were close to before because to us it didn't make any sense, it didn't have any place. And that's on an individual level. So on a global level, when we look at what we're going through, this event, I think this is a chance to look for a new normal. We're actually getting a gift because thank God most of us are well and fine, have survived. It's a big inconvenience that we've gone through. Terrible, sad for the people, the families. I believe the numbers of over 400,000 who have died from this worldwide. The numbers that we know worldwide. Many people suffered. Thank God there are many miracle stories. I hear them every day. It's incredible to hear these miracle stories of people coming back from the brink and almost like to them it's like they were gone and they've come back. It's incredible. But this is not, God forbid, a Holocaust event or even a 9/11 event, the way it happened. We're shaken, but we're given a gift that this time most of us are intact. The most important things we have ourselves, our family. We have food on our table. We have a roof over our heads. This is a chance to look for what's the new normal. What is my normal going to be tomorrow? Noah was scared to leave the ark because Noah knew that the normal that he lived before the ark was not a good normal. It was the way of life, and people survived. But God was not happy because it was going nowhere. It was going in circles, and it was a nation that would fall and a people that would fall and destroy itself fully before God destroyed them. And then there would be no chance of rebuilding. God wanted to rebuild from something good. So Noah didn't want to go back to the old normal. But he didn't want to go out. He wasn't sure what is the new normal. He had no guidance. So he waited for God to tell Noah, I'm assuring you it's going to be a different normal. Humanity is going to be a little different. I'm going to therefore deal with you a little bit differently. He made a rainbow and other types of symbols and signs. He gave him guidance. And when all that happened, Noah went out and immediately when he planted a vineyard, he threw himself into building a new normal and a new life. And the world continues from then. Today, we are lucky. We have a Torah. The Torah gives us clear guidance of what's important in life. What is the direction we should take? How we should work as a society, as a family, as people, to approach work, to approach the balance of work and life, to be able to celebrate our Judaism while we're out in the world being successful. Torah has very clear guidance for us. And at this point, this is what we have to look at. And hopefully we're using the time close to 3 months in this situation. I've seen tremendous upsurge in people joining classes and by Zoom and discussions, etc., etc. But this is the time we have to say, what did I take out now from this situation that will help me create a new normal for myself? Help me look at the world more healthily and in a way make my life more meaningful and more happy. So I just want to point out a few things, and you may even write it on the chat, some of the things you think. So number one of the things that hit you first, and not only that I see it, but I've heard from many people, is that the focus has turned away from the individual to the public. Life until now is about me. What's in it for me? What can I do? What do I get out of life? How can I gain more enjoyment, more experience, more money, more this, more that, more that. Everything is more and more and more for me. Why are most of us staying at home? Why are most of us in quarantine or isolation? Why are we not wearing masks? And why are we 2 meters away? Because all the time we're focusing on others. I don't want someone else to get sick in case I have it. Obviously, I don't want to get sick myself, but that's my decision. But I want to make sure I don't get anyone else sick. So we're doing so much of our life now to focus on others. We realize that there's a we in the world, that we don't live in this world alone. Sometimes we can lose ourselves and think that really this world is all about me. But this is where Hillel's statement comes to life when he says, the great sage Hillel, if I am not for myself, who is for me? But if I'm only for myself, if life is only about what's in it for me, what I get, money, what's my value? Like JFK said in his famous speech when he was inaugurated as president, don't ask what America can do for you, ask what you can do for America. This is about we. I think this is an incredible thing that we all see very clearly. Another thing, it's a very humbling experience because the whole world is under the same fear. The whole world is living under the same virus. We're talking about the coronavirus. It's in a telescope, you'll have a hard time. In a magnifying glass or a telescope, you have a hard time seeing that tiny little virus. And this virus hitting every country, poor and rich, simple person to leaders. It doesn't differentiate between anybody. We're all really the same. All of humanity is the same. And especially what's going on in the last week, we see in America and other places in the world, in reaction to the event of George Floyd being killed, how we see how important it is to recognize that really we are all the same. We are one humanity. We are one people. Like the Rabbi said, we're one people under one God, not two people or several people under one God. We're one people under one God because we are really all equal and one. Sometimes in life we start thinking, I am more deserving. There's more coming to me. I work harder. I'm different than anyone else. And Judaism doesn't encourage that. We may have different responsibilities, and we have to step up according to our responsibilities, according to our capabilities, but we are really all one. We're all in this together. No one is above it. And this is, again, understanding the power of we, that we feel that we're in it together with other people. I see neighbors that never saw each other, talked to each other, all of a sudden feel a kinship. When they see each other, they say hi from a distance that they never did before because the world is opening up to see that there's a we instead of an I. A healthier world needs a we rather than I. It's important that we have to each be as successful as we can on our own and to become the most we can become. But if I'm only for myself, what am I? We always have to worry and concern ourselves about others. Initially, all the reports you heard was about hoarding. People are hoarding stuff and very much acting selfishly. But those stories quickly faded away. And what do you hear now? In every city and place, more locally what's happening. I know what's happening here in my city, in Montreal, where the amount of volunteering, people are lining up to volunteer. Whenever project we do, there are lineups of people saying, I'm ready to help. People who would never help before, not physically, they'd either write a check or they're too busy. All of a sudden, I'm here to help, carrying groceries for people who cannot get out, caring for the elders. Caring for the elders. We were a society that tried to hide away our elders in homes. There's no place for them. Mandatory retirement. Get out of our way. Today, so much of what we're doing is all focused on the elders. We don't want the elderly. We feel terrible what's going on in the elderly, in some of the nursing homes all over the world, how the virus is spreading. And then I hear with people I'm involved, their parents in these homes, and thank God in many places they're able to overcome and get rid of the virus in these nursing homes. It's all about the elderly. The Torah tells us how important it is to respect and to cherish people with experience, how much we can learn from them. These people made it through life, and now we're focused on the elderly. Another thing related to Judaism. For many people, Judaism was a synagogue experience. It was all in the public. Either you went to Jewish school, or you were in synagogue, or there was a Jewish, a Y or JCC. This is where the Judaism was happening. And all of a sudden, Judaism is brought back home. Shabbat is not a synagogue, it's at home. Passover was at home with the family. Everything is at home. We're starting to see, how do we live as a Jew at home? And all of a sudden, people are realizing that Judaism really is all about the home. Judaism is about life and how we live. Where do we live? We live at home. So the main part of Judaism is at home. Family life. Many very well-meaning people were so busy working and trying to network, and they didn't have time for their family. Today, we're forced to be with our family, to sit with them for breakfast, lunch, and supper, to pay attention to them, to learn who our children are, for them to learn more about who we are. Spouses, relationships. Yeah, there are hardships in many relationships, but the opportunity that we can overcome these things. These are just a few things, thoughts, and the many more I'm sure you have, and I'd love to hear if any of you would like to, to share some of the things. But these are just a few of the things that this has opened up to us, that many people, well-meaning people, were never paying attention to this or had the time to. So I hope we don't return to the normal that we had before, because between you and I, a lot of it was self-destructing. Families were self-destructing. No time for each other. Everyone pursuing the dream of making money, being in power, the greed that took over, the indulgences. Today we find that we can enjoy ourselves in our home, enjoy ourselves. We don't have to run somewhere external to enjoy. We can enjoy ourselves where we are. So, do we want to go back to the regular normal? So I want to tell you something even more interesting. We have been living abnormally for almost 2,000 years. For as Jewish people, we know the true normal is when we lived in Israel together with the temple. That's when the Jewish normal was, when we felt as one people, when we felt the presence of God, the energy was within all of us. In the time of redemption, it was incredible normalcy. We felt in place, we felt wholesome, physically, materially, spiritually, it was all one. Exile is considered hayinu kecholmim. Exile is like a dream, it's like a sleep. When you're asleep, you're partially aware of what's going on, not completely and fully. Exile is like directionless. We feel directionless. We don't feel we have the clarity, the guidance that we had when we had the temple and God spoke through the holy priest's breastplate, prophets. We don't have that clarity. So we're like aimless, walking around aimlessly, going from place to place, hitting a wall, and then trying to start again in a new direction. So in reality, this is not normal. The exile is not normal. And as Jews, we pray many times a day that bring us back to the normal, bring us back to Israel and to Jerusalem and with the temple and with the Mashiach. That's when life will be normal. When what's right will be recognized for its being right. What's priority will be recognized for being priority. What's truth will be recognized for being truth. We will be much more open and vulnerable and able to grow, not feel the constant threats of coming from all sides and not knowing what to deal with first and just trying to survive as so many people try in their lives. This is the story of Purim. In Purim, we're told that when the king woke up, I couldn't sleep at night, that's when the miracle of Purim started to happen. It's a symbol that when we're asleep, things go in many directions, and very often it becomes negative. But when we wake up, when God wakes up, when we wake up, when we wake ourselves up to the connection that we have to God, and as Jews, to recognize that our soul is our true identity, and try to bring more of our soul into our life and make ourselves more wholesome, which makes us happier, more satisfied and complete, and become much more of a person who lives to their full potential. That is the normal. So the normal I pray for, and I'll sign off with this, is that I hope that when we get out of this soon and we can go back to life, a full movement, that we don't run back just to the things that we were used to yesterday. And we hope businesses revive and it does even better and communities come together and people meet each other in restaurants and other venues and celebrations will come back together. But I hope we'll become back a smarter people, recognizing the power of we, the power of spirit over just physical and material experiences and indulgences. I hope we realize that the normal we're seeking is a normal that comes much more from inside out than from outside in. We don't need to feed ourselves from what's outside, except what we engage in business to bring an income home. But even that should be expression of what's inside out rather than what's outside in. And then that will precipitate, God willing, that we will come with this great event that affected the world in ways that very few other things have affected. The next thing that will affect the entire world, the coming of Mashiach, when we'll have the true normal of the entire world being in a state of no more wars, no more violence, no more greed, no more jealousy, no more hunger, no more sickness, but really a perfect, beautiful world where humanity will be able to grow through each other and off of each other. And the we will stand out in a way that will create greater eyes, greater, every one of us to be greater in our life and our potential realized fully. And may that happen quickly in our days, that normal. But that normal will require our efforts. It's not going to happen by default. By default, we're going to fall back into the old normal. Very quickly, we'll forget what happened. But then, look what happened and how it was wasted. I think that we're in quarantine long enough to hopefully get the message and internalize it. We should have the new normal very quickly in our days for all of us and for all humanity. So this is how I want to end off, and we wish you all very well wherever you're watching around the world. It's a pleasure having you together now, and let's inspire other people with positivity, through patience and kindness, make the world a better place. Thank you.